the greats, Shaq, Augustus, Maravich. It's Angel Reese, Alexis Morris, Jasmine Carson, Kim Mulkey, who finally get the ring. LSU, shock and awe title. And tonight, UConn, San Diego State, the one thing that will decide that championship. And one more thing.
The Howard University Bison.
What if I told you one talent has the power to see the future? No one 16 will be the one, but cannot harness that power. Pablo.
I can explain.
No, you don't need to explain. This is hilarious. This is Cloud Car. Unbelievable power you have to make the prediction, but not land the prediction yet. We're serving punishment 2 weeks after my vacation. We're not going to start with taunting versus celebrating. That's not fair to this game, which, again, was shock and awe. LSU put up 102 points in a national title game. If you say a team takes on the personality of its coach, well, Angel Reese of the dominant double-doubles, Alexis Morris, the cold-blooded finisher, Jasmine Carson T-check in the first half, but it's Kim Mulkey in 2 years unleashing a shimmering champion in LSU. Here's Iowa's Lisa Bluter there. She thought the refereeing in the game was frustrating, maybe a few moments where officiating took this game in a different path. Foul outs for Iowa, technical on Caitlin Clark, but we're here for LSU 102, Iowa 85. Courtney Cronin, around the horn to you. How did this happen?
The officiating's what's being talked about today, Tony, but I don't want to give the officials credit for why LSU was able to win this game and put up the most points ever in a women's college basketball championship. They did it because they were lights out from three, 11 of 17 as a team. 7 of those made three-pointers came from the bench. And you think about Jasmine Carson, the player you just mentioned, who had 0 combined points the last 3 games, goes in and has 21 points in the first half alone, and she did it because Angel Reese was in foul trouble. That's the issue that we're all taking away from this game. You don't ever want to see the stars on the bench. And frankly, the officials got in their own way too many times here. And it didn't just affect LSU in moments. Caitlin Clark looked rattled out there. The Iowa Hawkeyes looked rattled when she got in foul trouble, and they were never able to recover.
Justin Timsley, how did this happen? LSU 102 in the title game.
Yeah, the refs better be lucky that Carson had that first half that she did, and obviously we'll talk about Angel Reese and everything that she had in that game. But LSU took this game personally because they've taken this entire season personally. Yes, Caitlin Clark was part of that, but they had to hear the talk about, oh, you have a weak non-conference schedule. They were ranked 16th going into the season. Are they built for this stage? So, yes, if it looked like they took that game personally yesterday, it's because they did. They shot 54% from the field, 65% from three. That's how you get 102 points in a national title game. They had 5 players in double figures for the 7th time this season, but it was for the first time since November 26th. This is a team that has had a me against the world mentality all season, and now it's them on top of the world.
Pablo Torres, return to you. I just noticed only minus 45. That's not cutting it. I mean, there's 68 teams in the tournament. You're going to be at minus 68. All right. Now, on the result from last night, LSU 102, Iowa 85. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, Tony, Jasmine Carson banking in that 3 before the half. It said everything, right? Like, on some level, this team's bench turning into Caitlin Clark themselves, LSU's bench, was the story here. They had 3 players who scored 20 points. Besides Angel Reese, who didn't even crack that number, it was incredible. The depth that they had, Iowa did not match it. Iowa got out-physicaled, out-rebounded. And yes, when you add on the fact that the holographic Kim Mulkey was all over the court, by the way, a 6th player, totally uncalled.
All right, well, let's talk about that then. Should that have been a technical foul? You saw the Caitlin Clark T for rolling the ball.
Yes, for rolling the ball. Tony, the whole thing about, first off, the rolling the ball thing, Iowa had cut the lead to 7, and it was in the 20s, and suddenly that all stopped because of the stoppage and also LSU's greatness. So that was a problem. But the fact that you're not going to then call it the other way when Kim Mulkey is literally being moved physically out of the way by the referee because she's on the court. It's just weird to have so tight a whistle, but so loose of one when the coach is violating all of the most obvious ways that a coach can violate the
And
rule.
Bill Plaschke, your takeaway?
It was terrible officiating, the worst I've ever seen, but it didn't affect the game. I mean, Angel Reese sat the whole second quarter. So, I mean, LSU got hurt as much as Iowa got hurt. It was unbelievable. LSU, Pablo was saying they're a 16 seed, or Justin was saying that. That's the lowest seed. That's the lowest preseason ranking ever to win an NCAA tournament. The number 3 seed was tied for the lowest seed ever in an NCAA tournament. This just came out of nowhere. It was tremendous. And the depth, 30-8, the bench outscored Iowa. There was their depth. They had, and let's give credit to Kim Mulkey. I don't particularly like her as a coach. There's things she's done that I don't approve of or don't agree with. But she can coach. She can get the best out of her players. I mean, it was amazing.
I appreciate you starting there because, hello, the game is the thing, to borrow a phrase. But now we turn our attention to the celebration after and the taunting versus celebrating conversation that happened as the clock wound down. It's at the free throw line here. Angel Reese looks to be trying to get Clark's attention to do the "you can't see me" John Cena hand in the face that Clark did previously in the tournament. Here's Clark doing it earlier in the tournament versus Louisville. Then it's the final 12 seconds as the LSU team slowly starts to celebrate with each other on the other side of the floor. Reese going back to Clark, following her around, still giving the "you can't see me," and then pointing to the ring. That is the ring that will be on her finger now that she is a national champion. Here is Reese about it after the game in multiple instances.
All year, I was critiqued about who I was. I'm too hood, I'm too ghetto. Y'all told me that all year. But when other people do it, y'all don't say nothing. So this was for the girls that look like me, that's gonna speak up on what they believe in. It's unapologetically you.
The fallout from this has been sizable. The intersection of how players celebrate and ideas of sportsmanship and respect and projections of what's classless and what's allowable for who and when, and gender dynamics, racial dynamics, culture and generational dynamics and all. Bill, having said all that, how did you see it played out in real time?
Watching the game with my daughter MC, we saw it in real time, and we leaped off the couch and screamed. I mean, we've never seen anything like that before. I've never seen that kind of taunting after a championship game in the wake of a championship celebration. And you know what? I loved it. It was Angel Reese being Angel Reese. Caitlin Clark did the same thing. She did the same. She's taunted the Louisville player. She taunted South Carolina. Flicked the wrist, told him to go ahead and shoot the ball. She's just, if you can dish it out, you got to be able to take it.
So you see those as the same. Both Clark doing it in previous games against a different team, and Reese doing it in this moment.
Absolutely. Okay. And I
Pablo
see
Torre, can I bring you in here?
20-year-old just celebrating.
Well, look, I think a couple of things are true here. Number one, it's not the same as Caitlin Clark in terms of the magnitude and the moment, right? Caitlin Clark is an inveterate trash talker. I love her for it. I said as much very publicly before this game. Angel Reese, though, did it twice, maybe even 3 times as conspicuously, as theatrically. And I think the point, Tony, that's also true here is that you don't have to like it. I think she's very clearly trolling people, and that's part of the provocation of the entire enterprise with Angel Reese. But the question is whether you would want her to ever change. And the answer to that is absolutely no. Tony, watch Caitlin Clark in those videos. Watch her not responding. Watch her seemingly in her mind resolving to get revenge next year. That revenge that hasn't even happened yet is why I'm already so excited for next season, for the season after that. A blood feud. We need more blood feuds. We got it thanks to that exact interaction.
The specific gesture with 12 seconds remaining as the team is stepping away to go celebrate, and Reese is still doing it to Clark. How did you see it, Tinsley?
Man, Pablo kind of hit the nail on the head. We should be talking about this next great rivalry that is being formed with these two, because that was fun. That was one of the most fun championship games I've watched in a long time. But instead, this is ballooned into a much, much larger, darker conversation. This is about who feels comfortable with who. And while oftentimes, a lot of times in these conversations, women are at the bottom of those totem poles, in particular, black women. So I think about conversations like Angela Bassett in the Oscars, Dawn Staley's recent comments after that Final Four loss. Like, we understand that race plays a role in all of these discussions. We could see the vitriol and the backlash to Angel Reese because of this. Never mind the fact that she was doing the same things that Caitlin Clark did, but she was doing it in a much more demonstrative tone. I have no problem with what Caitlin Clark was doing. I loved it. I think it's great for college basketball, and I hope she continues to do it. But Angel Reese, who said she was sticking up for those South Carolina players, she was doing the same thing, and I have no problem with that.
Did you find that interesting? It wasn't necessarily that Clark did it to Reese. It was that she was sticking up for a conference opponent that had. Did you find that interesting, revealing in some sort of way? Is this another example? Because we talk about athletes all the time inventing grudges, and she has plenty to be motivated for. But like say Travis Kelce at the Super Bowl, when he said nobody thought and everybody laughed at him, and in this case, everyone's noticing Reese.
Yeah, I mean, it did shock me to like, oh, well, you disrespected somebody within my conference. I'm going to stick up for him. But again, I think a lot of this boils down to social dynamics as well. They did not like the way that Caitlin Clark was taunting the South Carolina players, many of whom were black on there. I don't think it had anything to do with race, but they didn't like the optics of that. And they told you before the game that Caitlin Clark was not going to do to them what she did to SC, and they made it personal.
I find that one also interesting. It was that taunting when you say, go ahead, take a shot, versus celebrating at midcourt with the team, and then what we saw from Angel Reese there, Courtney Cronin. I'll bring you in here because you had some interesting comments as we sat down about the gender dynamics.
Yeah, I'm going to zoom out here and look at this thing in totality. Some people, Tony, are uncomfortable seeing women flex the same way that we see men do it with their bravado and their machismo. And you have to take a look at what the men's game, college basketball, the NBA, any sport, what it is built on. It's built on one-upsmanship. Take a look at Allen Iverson, who was heralded as an icon for stepping over Ty Lue. Steph Curry doing the shimmy, and then in the 2018 Western Conference Finals, Chris Paul hitting a three over Curry, doing a shimmy in his face as well. Nobody was up in arms about that, but because women are supposed to be the ones as quiet competitors, the art of sportsmanship, taking the high road, we get criticized for doing the same thing that we allow in the men's arena. So I have an issue with that in the grand scheme of things, whether it's Caitlin Clark, whether it's Angel Reese. You can't be gatekeeping celebrations anymore. Let women celebrate the way that they want to. And frankly, I'm okay with all of it because in the end, this is the highest level of competition in the women's college basketball game. There's going to be emotions involved because if people didn't have emotions involved in it, we'd say, oh, it just doesn't matter to them. It clearly matters to both players a lot.
Bill Plaschke after the horn.
I've been in the media 40 years, and I got to be honest, especially in women's basketball, players who look like Caitlin Clark are covered differently than players who look like Angel Reese. They just are. Caitlin Clark is considered a gamer and tough. Angel Reese is considered dirty. It's just wrong, and it's wrong. Angel Reese is calling out the media on it. Dawn Santa Claus